Hey everybody, it's Yasmin Boland here with this week's Mainly Moonology podcast. And this week I have a very special guest who I'll tell you all about in a moment. But before I do that, let me say this week is amazing for meditating. There's only one major astrological aspect happening this week. And it's taking place in the sign of Pisces. So wherever you have Pisces in your chart is where there's some mystical magic going on. If you don't know where Pisces is in your chart, you can find out for free with my special free chart, which you can get at moonmessages.com/free chart. We'll put a link in the description, but it's moonmessages.com/free chart. So really do focus on your meditating this week if you're a meditator, and if you're not a meditator and you want to be a meditator, it's a really, really good week to start. We get the Sun conjunct Neptune on March 17th. It only happens once a year. So it's that time where it's really easier to connect with the divine, connect with the numinous, connect with the mysteries of life. And meditation is really one of the best ways to do it. If you don't know how to meditate, just, hop on YouTube and just Google guided meditation, Deepak Chopra. You cannot do better than that as a way to start to get meditating. But now I want to hand you over to my guest, who is a very interesting character. He is based out of Sedona, Arizona. His name is Jim Fortin. So he was introduced to me by a business colleague. I'm a member of a mastermind. And so it's not a cosmic colleague. It was someone who I do a business mastermind with. And she said, you should listen to him. He's amazing. I started listening, and honestly, I listen to his podcast every week now. And I just can't stop because he is such an interesting character. So although I must say, interviewing him was different to what I expected, overall, I definitely think he is more than worth introducing you to. I will leave you to draw your own conclusions. His name is Jim Fortin. He's a spiritual teacher. His podcast is called Transform Your Life from the Inside Out. And here is our conversation. All right. So this week, I am absolutely delighted and honoured to welcome to the show someone who I think I could simply describe as a bit of a thought leader. I know him as Jim Fortin, who does the amazing Transform Your Life from the Inside Out podcast, which I have to say, Jim, it's a little bit of a mouthful.
Yeah.
Don't you think that every week when you introduce yourself on your podcast?
Yeah, I get it completely. And some people say that, but it explains what I do.
The reason why I wanted to interview you is partly because as I was telling you before we started recording, I listen to your podcast every single week. Yours is one of only 2 podcasts that I listen to every single week. And you were recommended to me by someone in an elite mastermind that I'm a part of. I was actually thinking about this just before we logged on, and I was thinking, I feel like you're one of these people, and I actually think somebody once said to me that I'm one of these people, but honestly, I don't remember. But I feel like there are some people I know. I know someone called Sonia Choquette, and I know Sonia, and there's someone who you may not know, but she's amazing. She lives in New York, called Laura Day. And both of them, and I think you have this thing where just listening to you somehow shifts things. It's something that I do really strongly feel with Sonia and Laura as well. So anyway, so hopefully people who are listening, if you need a shift, you're going to get this little shift from Jim. So I wanted to get Jim on today because he talks about so many things, but in particular, he talks about subconscious reprogramming. Now, in my work that I do, which is Moonology, where we work with the lunar cycle, we set intentions at the new moon and we release everything to the universe at the full moon. A lot of it is to do with subconscious reprogramming. It's about breaking beliefs, and that comes in one part of the cycle, and then starting new beliefs based on what you want to get and what your life experiences are and so on. But I know that you talk about this. Do you see the role of the subconscious mind as part of shaping our reality? I mean, it's almost a silly question, I feel like, in some ways, but let's talk about how our subconscious mind shapes our reality.
Okay. I wouldn't say this on a lot of podcasts, but I'll do it on yours because it'll fit with you. So even though I say subconscious mind, let me tell you the story here. Oh gosh, 25 years ago, I got certified in hypnosis, and I did it at the Hypnosis Institute in New York City. And I've always been interested in the mind and performance and behavior and all that. But as you know, my brother-in-law is a shaman. So I live heavily in the spiritual aspect. I call it really the cosmic aspect of our beingness. Now, to your question, most people think that we have the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the superconscious mind. That would be Jungian, Carl Jung philosophy. So many of us humans that even think about the subconscious mind, we think, oh, okay, conscious mind, analytical, subconscious mind, subconscious. And it's this thing that runs me. But what we don't really recognize, and I don't say it on the podcast, is that the subconscious mind is already connected to superconscious divine mind. So that is our inlet. It's not like an individual, it is an individual, but it's not an individual, air quotes, subconscious mind. It's literally part of the entire cosmic fabric in terms of consciousness.
Wow. Okay, well, let's
Where'd it
try and
go?
break that down a little bit. Let's
Okay, let me
start
go here.
with,
I'll break it down, make it
go
simple.
on then, yeah.
Ernest Holmes, I've never really read any of his books. I've never read any of his books. The Science of Mind, back in the early 1900s. There's a quote of his. I'm not going to say the whole quote because I probably won't say it properly. But he says, the quote is this: imagine your mind so plastic, so receptive that it receives the slightest impression of your thought. Not some thoughts, but all thoughts are taken up and acted upon. So every thought you have, like right here listening, people listening could be saying, oh, I can't pay my bills today. So what happens is that's picked up by divine mind. Remember, plastic and receptive, everything is thought. So what we think imprints consciousness, and that is the experience that we create in our own life.
So there's going to be some people who hear this and, are going, oh my God, that's really bad because I spend my life worrying, for example.
Yeah, it
And
is.
to that, I would say that's where meditation comes in, or walking in nature, or EFT tapping, or.
Before you go there, the Buddha said, if there is no anger in you, you cannot be angry. So notice the approach you took here, which is what most people do. The approach is, okay, there's anger in, as a metaphor, there's anger in me. I'm going to keep the anger in me because I want to hang on to it, but I'm going to meditate on it. So the more powerful approach is to become. It's all about being. Become a being that doesn't have the anger in you. So all this fear and worry, the approach that you had just mentioned, I know you just mentioned it that way just to explain, but the approach you mentioned presupposes I get to keep the anger or the fear or whatever, but I can meditate about my worry. The key is to become a being who doesn't have that worry.
And to try and release it as well.
Release it. Yes, release it 100%. Not try, and that comes to realization. We release it. The more we realize who we are and what we are at a conscious, energetic level, like I tell people in the podcast, what worry does your soul have? Your soul does not worry. Your soul is your energy. It's your consciousness. All these things that you worry about, your bills and gas prices and Trump and Putin and Biden and all these things in the world, that's all 3D ego. That's all fabricated, and you've made it all up. And ideally, we want to evolve to a place where that stuff doesn't even bother us.
So I would just say, for the benefit of anyone who is interested, when I learned to meditate, I was told something very interesting about imagine any concerns and worries you have as little pieces of string in a knot. And as you meditate, they unknot and they release. So when I say to meditate, I suppose I think that when you meditate, you start to release all this stuff. Plus, you can set the intention to forgive, and once you have the intention, you're going to start to forgive and so on. But yeah, okay, all right.
Wait, can I add something there? I know I don't want to
Please.
disrupt your train of thought.
No.
But you'd mentioned meditation, and there's so many people in the world that are discovering it, that are into it, might have done it for years, but more and more people are waking up to it. So about 25 years ago, I asked my brother-in-law, the shaman, about meditation. And I said to him, do you meditate every day? I mean, he's a real shaman, not somebody that says they're a shaman. He's a shaman like you would find in the Amazon as the best example, or Siberia. And I said, do you meditate? And he says, no, I don't. And it didn't make sense to me. And he said, people actually treat meditation as a practice. And meditation is not a practice. It is a state of being. So what we do many times is, like, let's say we're going to go to church on Sunday as a metaphor. We want to be spiritual. So we get dressed up, we get in the car, we go to church, we're spiritual, we leave church, and we return to life. That's what people do with meditation. They live their life, but they use it as the practice, like going to church. And he said, ideally, you want to be in a state of meditation, which is a state of being 24/7. And that is a state of bliss, of peace, of just relaxing into mind and peace of mind and peace of life.
It's not easy. I know that you and I have both had the same problem in the last year or two, which was renovations that went on and on and on. I had a renovation that was meant to take 12 weeks. It took 14 months.
Yeah.
And I found it so hard to stay centered, to stay compassionate, to stay in my zone, all that. And I know you have too, because you've talked about it on the podcast. Like, what I mean, on a daily basis, people who are listening to this going, well, it'd be really nice to just be sort of cosmic and in a meditative state all the time. How do you handle it when you get your back to the wall like that? Like you've had months of this.
I've had years. I've got somebody here today doing work. I had somebody here yesterday. I had 5 people here yesterday in a house that was supposed to be done 2 years ago. In Sedona, we don't have housing. It's a very small town. I sold my other home and moved into this one. And I had nowhere to move because Sedona, and there's no city 5 miles nearby, so you can just get somewhere else. So yesterday, we have some custom metal work being put in the house. And they came and put it down, and I was looking at the island. The kitchen island is 14 feet long. And we have dividers in the middle of it with copper pieces to divide it up. And they just put them in yesterday. And I'm thinking last night, why does one side of the island, it's a black granite, look a little shinier than the other side? And I've never noticed it. And I thought maybe it's because they put these dividers in now, and I can clearly see the distinction. And that would have, years ago, that would have been like, I mean, it doesn't match yet. What's going on? Why was it? Last night, I'm literally shrugging my shoulders going, what are you going to do? And that's how I live life. Let me tell you something I mentioned in the podcast.
Sorry, please. Jim, but you haven't just given up, have you? Because you just can't.
I've not given up because it's my home, but where I am is I'm not fighting it. It's gonna get done when it's going to get done. Right. But I go back to something I mentioned in the podcast, where I'm working from on the house, and I've got cabinet doors laying on the floor here in my office and different. I mean, it's just not. I got cabinets missing in my office bathroom that should have been here 8 months ago, and they're not here, and they were ordered a year prior. Where I go is this. Don Juan Matus, who's a shaman, told me in 1996, you need to learn to care about everything in the world and in the same moment not give a damn about anything. Meaning you care, but you're not obsessed by the caring, because that's consuming for people. So where I live from is I can't control it. I can't. So what I do is I just do my best. I do my best to move forward, and that's the end of the equation for me, meaning it'll get done when it gets done.
So I do want to get onto the subconscious reprogramming, but just beforehand, do you think that, because I kind of ended up in that same place after our renovations debacle, of just going, you know what, it's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine. Do it like that. It's fine. It is what it is. I'd hear, oh, they put the tiles on upside down. I'd be like, you know what? Maybe the tiles are meant to be on upside down.
I do the same thing.
But you think that's the universe, like, was just pummeling us until we surrendered to get us into this state? Like, is that possible?
Anything is possible. And that's an interesting question. Here's what I tell people is the universe does see the way you're postulating this seems to me as if the universe is testing us until we surrender. And where I work from is the universe doesn't test us, it reflects us, meaning this is a mirror of everything that I've created.
Or maybe we are testing ourselves in that case. Do you think we let it go on to that extent because we wanted to get ourselves into that state? I suppose I'm asking, maybe there's a point to all this.
The point is, if there was a point, it would be evolution and growth and peace, letting things go, but evolving and growing as all this is happening. So evolving and growing for me is more peace, surrender. It is what it is. And if I fight it, I'm fighting what I've created. And how can I fight what I've created? I mean, I can't blame anyone. The contractor is not doing a good job. Guess what? I'm the one who hired him. So that responsibility comes to my doorstep. And all the bad decisions, and he's made a lot of bad decisions, and I mean a lot of bad decisions. Hey, I'm the one who hired the guy. And because I wanted the land where I'm building the house, I'm on 2.5 acres on my border of the national forest. And what's interesting? I was looking at totem cards this morning, and there was a deer out in front of my house. And deer medicine, an animal totem, is about continuing and moving on in life and being a guide to other people, for real. And I'm like, you know what? That's what I'm doing. Is I'm just releasing all this nonsense in my life and I'm not getting into it. And my job is to stay centered so that I can be a guide to people.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting. It's really thought-provoking, actually, everything you've said. I feel like there were definitely lessons in it for me, this whole debacle, this whole thing, which just seemed like such a disaster. I definitely think it had lessons. So, okay. So I just wanted to ask you another question before we get on to the subconscious programming.
Sure.
You were saying, you quoted this guy the guy you mentioned, about every single thought becomes something.
Ernest Holmes.
Yeah.
Right.
So what about for someone who's listening to that, who's dealing with someone else, who's maybe dealing with a very difficult boss or with a marital breakup or a difficult parent or sibling or neighbor? So when you're thinking all these things, maybe you're thinking with your ex that you want to reunite, or maybe you're thinking with your boss. Let's just go with reuniting with the ex, because then you possibly got two opposing thoughts. You've got every one of your thoughts becoming real and every one of their thoughts becoming real. How do you navigate that dance when you want something different, or if your boss is being terrible to you? How do you navigate that? Is that about subconscious programming, or where does it go?
Yes and no. And you're asking two different questions there. And let's take that apart because you've been very clear and I know where you want to go, but let's take that apart first. Okay. So number one is things happen in life and people will say, I didn't choose this. I didn't choose that. It just happened to me. Nothing just happens to you. We literally co-create in life through consciousness. Every single thing that happens to you, whether you want to believe it or not, and we're conditioned not to believe it because of the world we live in, which is very, very backwards and very primitive. Everything that happens to you has already been orchestrated and created by you before you even came to the planet. Let's say that you chose to have an infant when you come to the planet, but the infant leaves the planet early, meaning they don't make it past infancy. And as a human being, looking at it only as a human being, that can be devastating. But when we look at the higher level of it, what lesson am I learning? What lesson did that baby come to teach me? And then the baby, did what they needed to do, and then they went back home again, meaning becoming pure consciousness. So that's one aspect, is that we co-create all of our life. Now, the second aspect about the boss that you'd mentioned, that comes down to choice, because we're the one who chose to work there. There's a million places you can get a job in this world. The most useless thing that people can do is complain about a job or their circumstances, because they and they alone are the ones who chose those and created them, or created and then chose to stay in those circumstances. People that are broke, they get mad when I tell them, if they're broke right now in the world, 2023, guess what? They're making that choice, because you look around and you see a lot of people making a lot of money in the world, whatever they're doing to do it. That proves you can make money, but they're in those situations because of the identity. They don't think they deserve more. And the identity says, oh, subjugate yourself, work for someone else, let them tell you what to do, let them control you. That is subconscious identity, yes, but we're also making the choice to be in those places.
All right. So what about this subconscious programming? Presumably we're not stuck with it forever. We can change it.
Well, it's not presumably. We can't change it. Anyone can change anything. By that argument, presumably would mean we couldn't change things. Very few things you cannot change. Most things, even in your brain, you can change, and that's called neuroplasticity, because everything we do is a habit. And this is research demonstrated. So that's the brain, not the mind. That's the brain doing the habit. You can change the brain through neuroplasticity.
So just say somebody says, okay, I know I've been programmed to think, or I've subconsciously programmed myself to think I'm not good enough. How am I going to change that?
So I'm going to go there, but let me answer another question first. So you live in the UK, right?
I do.
Let me ask you this to demonstrate first about the subconscious mind. It doesn't matter what the opinion is. I'm just curious of the answer. What did you think of Queen Elizabeth?
Thought she was a mighty fine woman as far as royalty goes.
Okay. So you gave me an answer. Now notice this. It only took you maybe 15 seconds. And you didn't have to go, well, I don't know. Let me research her. Let me find out more about what this person is about. What is a queen anyway? I don't know what a queen is. What's a royal family? Notice that you answered, boom, just like that, because you already have all these thoughts and beliefs from your past that predicate and precede the answer that you just gave me. That's your subconscious mind. So it drives all of us. The number one thing that I see people dealing with is a lack of self-worth, meaning they have very low self-value. Now, men and women both, but generally men don't acknowledge it. Women are like, I'm not feeling good about myself. Men don't put it that way. They say it in a different way. And it's culturalized, because men they're supposed to be strong, and the old 1950s model, the breadwinner and the money earner and all these kind of things. So we learn low self-esteem, low self-image, but mainly low self-value, meaning we don't feel good about ourselves. And when we're doing that, it's because we're comparing ourselves to other people. Or we've learned through indoctrination from our parents as a kid, you're not good, you're not good, you're bad. Who's going to want you? We're poor people. We're not like rich people. You shouldn't be around those kind of people. We can't do that. And there's a whole myriad of things that we learn as a child, but we learn we are not valuable as a child. When we learn that at a very early age, we carry that through life and then wonder why we keep shortchanging ourselves through life. How do we change that? The easiest way is there's a couple of ways. One, and you can find it all over the internet, even though you talk about, and it's in my bio about subconscious transformation, is I teach people how to change things subconsciously, but there are a lot of people who do that. But I also teach transformation, and there are other people who do that, not a lot, but I teach teach both together to transform at a subconscious level, not just transformation analytically. How you do that is two ways. We'll keep it simple. Number one is repetition. What you say to yourself over and over and over again programs your subconscious mind. So what you learned as a kid, the best example, I don't know if you guys do this in the UK, but in the United States, every single person, for the most part, probably knows the Pledge of Allegiance. The reason why is because we were all marched out of the classroom in first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, hand over our heart, pledging allegiance to a flag, which is nationalism. We don't recognize, no first grader ever says, what is this about? I'm being indoctrinated. But that's what it is. So our parents indoctrinate us based upon how they grew up with their limited thinking about how bad the world is or how hard it is or how hard we have to struggle. They indoctrinate us. Then we become that. Most people live that. Now, how to change that? One, let's look at the indoctrination. People listening right now, you guys listening, I mean, how many of you have been told you're not good? You're not going to amount to anything. You can't do math. You can't do this. You can't do that. We're not those kind of people. Money doesn't grow on trees. You hear it over and over and over again as a kid. That programs you. But notice how you're programmed through brain-based repetition, meaning just the talk of it over and over. So to answer your question directly now, I had to give a little background. Standing in front of the mirror and looking at yourself and saying 3 times in the morning and around noontime and the early afternoon and at night before you go to bed, looking in the mirror and saying and connecting with yourself in the mirror and saying, I love you, I love you, I love you. We start indoctrinating ourselves with our value and our self-love at that point. That's one way. So when we're looking at ourselves in a mirror, we're seeing ourselves, telling ourselves that we love ourselves. Now, some people will say, I can't even get there. I mean, some people really are in this self-loathing. They've learned it. No baby pops out of the womb going, I hate myself. They don't do that. We learn that through our parents and culture. So the easiest way is to look in the mirror and connect and indoctrinate yourself with that thinking. Now, it's not just analytical. So look at yourself in the mirror and notice all the good things about you. Many people can't find good things about themselves, but notice your wonderful heart or how you want to help people or you want to help stray animals or something. And then notice how you feel about that. Then as you're looking, say in that moment, I love you. I love you. And I teach my students to say it 10 times, 3 times a day, meaning in front of the mirror in the morning, say it 10 times and just feel it and then go about your day. Do it in the afternoon, do it in the evening. It sounds pretty cheesy. It sounds pretty, that's not going to work, but you're literally reprogramming your subconscious mind. That's the easiest way because we program ourselves all day long. Everyone listening right now is talking to themselves about what I'm saying, or traffic, or something. We talk to ourselves. That self-talk is programming. We're programming the divine subconscious mind by what we say over and over and over again.
Yeah. And one thing I always say to people as well is that it's just so important to work through self-doubt, which is kind of the different side of the same coin. And that will, self-doubt kills manifesting. You're not going to manifest what you want if you don't think you're worthy of it. You have to think you're worthy of whatever it is you want to create.
You want to go deeper on that?
Sure.
Okay. Self-doubt is created through the fear of making the wrong choice or a bad choice. So let's say you have 2 choices in front of you and you're looking at them. And what we're thinking automatically is which one is the best choice. Then what we get into, and then we're getting into perfectionism with not recognizing we're getting into perfectionism. Now we get into perfectionism because as a child, we're rewarded for doing things well. When you're in first grade, you get an A. Good job, Susie and Yasmin and Jim. Good job. You got an A. So we are rewarded for doing well. So we learn at a very early age, the better we do, the more we're going to be loved, the more we're going to be rewarded. So then many times we get into perfectionism or doing it the best possible way. Then when we go there, we can't decide. And that's what creates doubts. Should I do A? Should I do B? Oh, no, I can't decide now because if I choose the wrong one, that's going to be bad. So then we get into doubt. And doubt, as you indicated, and you said, yes, I agree. Doubt is when you shut down and it shuts everything else down.
So what do you think, for example, someone who keeps popping into my head, a girlfriend of mine in Australia, and I know there have been times, and she's really into subconscious programming and manifestation and meditation. She even teaches meditation. There have been times where she really thought, for example, she was 100% convinced she was going to get a particular job and she didn't get the job, or other people might believe certain things that just do not manifest. So what do you think's happening there? Like when you really believe something, but it's not happening?
That's a wonderful question. Belief is all analytical, meaning I have to think about what I want to believe. Do you believe you like red, the color red? Red right here. Do you believe you like the color? Yes, no. But that's all coming from your past. Now, belief, meaning a conscious belief, and a lot of people tell you you have to believe, all the motivational speakers. That's analytical left brain. What you believe is what's already in the subconscious mind. So what we create is not what we actually think analytically. What we create is what we are subconsciously. So it doesn't matter if here's the pivot. You said she believed she was going to get the job. I don't know that I believe that. What I do believe is that she believed she was going to get the job. Now, the distinction is, to what degree did she believe that? Did she believe it a little bit? Did she believe it at a soulful level? And that's where we manifest from, is the soulful level, not the analytical thought, like, I believe I can make $1 million. That's not going to work. It just doesn't work because we don't manifest from spirit, soul, and energy at that place. Where we manifest from is who we are at a core identity, subconscious level.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And in fact, as I thought about it, I was thinking about all her subconscious programming, which I know about because I know her family. All right. So just a couple more questions before I let you go, Jim. But one that is occurring to me, because I actually learned about, I didn't do it, I'll just be upfront, I didn't do it, but I did learn a lot about psychedelics in Sedona, which is where you live.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, I wonder if psychedelics are of interest to you. I know with your shamanic brother-in-law, they're into the hallucinogenics, I believe, or psychedelics. What do you think? I mean, and they are obviously paradigm smashers. People come back from ayahuasca, which again, I've never done, but I know they come back with whole new mindsets. What's your feeling on that, living as you do in the vortex of Sedona, where these things are all over the place?
Yeah. I don't really know where they are here because I don't explore them. I don't look for them. Here's the thing. I'm just going to tell you what I was told by my brother-in-law. He goes, so many people come to me that have done things like ayahuasca, and they go to a weekend retreat somewhere like in Mount Shasta, California, or, some little trendy little place, Sedona, and they do these ayahuasca journeys. And the problem is the people taking them on the journeys are not real. They're not even shamans. They're not real shamans, but they're not even shamans. So what happens when we go on these journeys, we expand energetically. It's like, for example, taking your hand out of, you have a glove on, you take the glove off and there's the hand, and the hand expands. But the problem is, my brother-in-law told me, is that the thing is, many times the expansion is so great for people, they can't get the glove back on. And the glove is the body, the identity, the person, Jim or Bob or Susan or Mary or Yasmin or whoever. They can't get the glove back on. Now, have you ever put a glove on, when you put it on and one finger's kind of it's kind of wonky, and you're like, okay, I got to straighten that finger out. So many times when people reintegrate back into the physical body after doing the journey, They're not integrated properly. Then what happens is they have like nightmares. They're having a lot of fears that are showing up in different things. So they are playing with the power, but they're playing with the power by beings that are not, air quote, qualified to lead them on the journey. That's my opinion on it. I don't touch them. Everything that I do with my brother-in-law as a guide, but I don't do anything with anyone. I never have, never will. And 30, I mean, I'm 60, I'm 59, been on this path for 30 years. I don't let other people do things that mess with my energy, my electromagnetic body at
Yeah.
all.
And do you use hypnosis in your work?
Every day. I do. And for me, it's not, even though it is hypnosis, you mean my personal work? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do every day. And people could say, well, that's not true, Jim. Really? I mean, I even have an app here on my phone that's got all kinds of hypnosis applications on it. I've got literally probably 100 different audios that are hypnosis audios. Now, most people see them as, oh, I'm programming my subconscious mind. That's not the way that I experience it. I experience it as I'm holding my consciousness in that place because that's what the energy I create, and that's the energy that I'm entertaining, and that's what I manifest in my life is where I hold the energy. So yes, but not in the way you're saying, but yes, I do the hypnosis audios, but I approach them differently than most people, but every single day.
What is your star sign? Am I allowed to ask?
I'm an Aquarian.
Aquarius, perfect. And can I ask you who was your greatest teacher apart from your brother-in-law before you met him, or did he start you on your journey?
No, my brother-in-law really started me, but there are a couple of people that played a role. For example, a guy named Wayne Dyer. I used to listen to prior to meeting my brother-in-law. And then I met my brother-in-law and found out that Wayne Dyer constantly talks about my brother-in-law's work, which is ghostwritten. So my brother-in-law, as a shaman, his story was ghostwritten, and it sold tens of millions of copies around the world. Wayne Dyer used to always listen. And when I met Wayne one time, and when I told him who my brother-in-law was, he goes, I will go anywhere, anytime, any place to meet your brother-in-law. That's exactly what he said.
Wow.
So he's been somebody. I have a couple of people I want to share here. One, spiritually, is Wayne Dyer. The most prominent, bazillion times over, is my brother-in-law, the shaman. But in the world we live in, Wayne Dyer was influential many years ago. Somebody else that's been influential many years ago was Anthony DeMello, DeMello. Someone else that was very pivotal for me, and it's going to be on my podcast soon, is a guy named Gary Zukav, Zukav. He's been on Oprah 36 times.
Oh, wow.
And he's going to be on, he's a spiritualist. His book is called The Seed of the Soul. He's going to be on my podcast later in the month. Those three people are spiritualists. I've never been into Deepak Chopra, stuff like that. Never been into the motivators, never been into Tony Robbins. It doesn't resonate with me. Good stuff, but just doesn't resonate with me. Now, more 3D in the business world is a woman named Virginia Cook, who I've mentioned on my podcast before. She's in her 80s. She was a Dallas business icon for real. I mean, she was a big name in Dallas. And she built a multi-billion-dollar company in real estate. She was one of my best friends. She taught me the true power that my brother-in-law had taught me, but she taught me in a different way, the power of giving to other people, because she's a massive giver and her whole life is about contribution. So I learned deeply and at a core level about the power of giving to other people, which my brother-in-law taught me is Ayni, which is Ayni, the reciprocity of life, ancient Incan. That is the foundation of life. So that's the core and the foundation that I work from.
Amazing. So, Jim, you're amazing. Where can people find you? JimFortin.com.
That's the easiest place, JimFortin.com. I'd mentioned the resources like I have an entire training. It's free right now, and it's been free, but I don't think it's on my website. But if you follow me, I'll mention it. It's called it's about loving yourself. and it's a PDF with an audio program on loving yourself. If you follow me at jimfortin.com, also my podcast, my podcast is in the top 0.1% of podcasts on iTunes. Transform your life from the inside out. It has millions and millions of downloads. And that's a great place to start to get, I guess, more expansion on what we talked about today.
Yeah, no, the podcast is brilliant. And,
Thank you.
I love it. Okay, well, look, Jim, thank you so much. Stay there because I just want to say something to you after we stop recording. Sure. But thank you for being here. And I highly recommend to everybody listening, have a listen to Jim.
Well, once again, everyone that's been listening, thank you for your presence here also, because you invested your time and your energy to be here. So thank you also because you're living your dharma, meaning your passion. I'm living my dharma by doing this, my passion, and what I'm on the planet for. We couldn't do that if they weren't here. So blessings to all of you, and thank you so much.